Hello.
I am so excited to have y'all here with us. I am so excited. Because I have talked to each of you like on a personal level, throughout all of this, but I still am like, I'm like, oh yeah, they're my friends, but also like I'm a huge fan. So like I'm still like, and to have all of y'all here together, I'm so excited about this. So I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out. I am going to kind of go around because pretty much everybody knows who y'all are. I mean, y'all are celebrities. We saw the packed stadium for Dr. K this weekend. So y'all are pretty much everybody knows y'all. But I'm going to go around and let each of you kind of give like a little bit of your background and tell kind of how you are related or involved in this case. So we'll start with Mandy. We'll just go around.
This Mandy?
Which Mandy? Yeah, two Mandys. We'll either one. Y'all go ahead.
Go ahead, Mandy.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. So I'm Mandy Powers Norrell, and I have been a practicing attorney in South Carolina for the past 25 years. Actually, knew Alex Murdaugh and would actually tell Mandy Matney, "There's no way he did it, Mandy," and she has better instincts than I do. But I am now a prosecutor in the in Lancaster, South Carolina, prosecuting domestic violence. But I started doing that after serving 4 terms in the state legislature and becoming involuntarily retired in 2020, meaning I got beaten in re-election and was looking for something to keep up that energy level of the legislature, and found it in prosecuting, something I had not done. I've been practicing in the civil realm for 25 years and have been prosecuting for the past year and really love it so much. And I just have to say, I'm so excited to be here with y'all because, I mean, this is a group of some of my favorite people from different areas of life. And I've known Mandy Matney since probably she got to South Carolina, and I've been such a big fan this whole time, and was just like watched the amazing things that she's done, and her absolute amazing intuition about people and about things. And then Dr. Kenny Kinsey, I'm so excited because he functions on another realm. I think he doesn't even quite realize that he's divinely touched, because I think he sees things that the rest of us don't see. And I'm just and Brandi, just getting to know you through this trial and this past year has been awesome. I'm so happy to be here with this amazing group. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We're
happy to have you too. All right, Mandy, other Mandy.
Okay, I'm up. My name is Mandy Matney. I have been a journalist for over 10 years, and I've been in South Carolina since about 2016. I started investigating the Murdaugh family back in 2019. And it feels like forever. I've been doing this forever at this point, and it just keeps going. And I am the creator of the Murdaugh Murders podcast, which is now True Sunlight. And I have a book coming out, which my husband was like, you have to plug in the book. Yes. My husband's the marketing guy. I'm not. I have a book coming out in November called Blood on Their Hands, about just kind of my life and my story and the behind the scenes of how I found out about the Murdaughs and how I found out everything behind my reporting. And yeah, that's coming out this November. I'm really excited to be here. I've never met Dr. Kenny Kinsey, and a big fan of you. I was in awe of you during the trial. I was just like, thank the Lord that this man is in South Carolina and here to help us. Yes. And Mandy has been a good friend of mine. Mandy has helped me not only, she was very good on insight with Alec and his family and what he was like, but she knows the law in South Carolina like nobody else. And there have been a million late nights when I get a filing and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand what's going on. And Mandy will be one of the first ones to be like, okay, so this is blah, 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 and don't freak out, it's fine. And yeah, so, and Brandi, you're awesome. I've loved seeing you, your star is rising, and I see it, it's amazing. You are a ray of sunshine, and I love what you've done with your YouTube channel, it's so cool. And your intro is awesome. I was just watching that, and I was like, we gotta spice ours up. This is giving me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's like our fight music that like
I love it. Yeah. It's like ready for war.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Dr. Kinsey.
Ladies, you are my heroes. And Miss Brandi, it was so nice to finally get to meet you face to face. And Mandy, I can't tell you how much I follow you now. And Miss Mandy, I didn't know you could be an attorney at 3, but you said you've been practicing for 25 years. So
Thank you.
That is phenomenal. All of you are like, I don't know, look like teenagers compared to my old country behind. But I'm so appreciative of the support and the love that all of you have shown. And I was just thrust into this thing, you know, trying to do a favor, actually, for a very dear friend. And it has just opened up avenues, and it's something I never expected. And I'm not even saying I deserved it, but it's just been a big blessing. And so many people have taken the high road and shown support. And then we got to, I'm sure we'll come up in a little while, but it's been an amazing experience, and I don't take it lightly. I didn't get here on my own, and I'm just so appreciative that those that helped. But I like to remind everyone, I was just a little small spoke in this wheel. And I try to, I don't say I dumb it down. I try to bring it down to my level, let those men and women of the jury decide. And it worked again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that. And I think we're like, I want to say too, I want to show this picture because this weekend at CrimeCon, this is me standing at the very, very back of this huge ballroom for Dr. Kinsey. And I don't know if you can see, but like if you like, I mean, this crowd goes all the way through there. And as he was speaking, it was a packed house, and everybody just Dr. Kinsey, you did such a good job, and everybody just hung on your every word, and you did such a great job. And I mean, while we're showing pictures, this was I mean, just while we're here, this was the meet and greet for Dick and Jim. While we're showing pictures, that's also speaking of packed house. So Dr. Kinsey, you did such a great job, and I appreciated everything. And you said something in there that said it was the first time you had said it. Am I allowed to say this?
You can. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You said when you were on stage, you were talking about the trial and everything, and you said that this was the first time you had ever said this. Do you want to tell them what it was? Do you remember even?
I just said I believe the jury got it right.
Yeah.
I know the jury got it right. Whichever way the jury ruled, I was good with it. And when I was doing my work, it was just about explaining the evidence. But now looking back at things I didn't even know, being involved and having access to all the evidence, in my heart, I know the jury got it right. It doesn't matter what I think, but in my heart, I know the jury got it right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, Mandy, you said that it, like, looking at it in the beginning, you're like, there's no way. The whole reason that I started getting involved in this was because everybody kept saying, there's no way that he had time. The timeline doesn't work out. There's no way he could have had this to do and this to do. And I was like, I bet you I can show you. So I sat there and this is one of the perks of having been home, on medical leave, with desperately needing somewhere to divert my energy, like all of my extra energy and time that I wasn't spending where I would normally be at work. And I sat there with my spreadsheet on my Chromebook, and a friend of mine, she works, she's a paralegal in Charleston, and she has worked with some of the Murdaughs before. So she and I texted nonstop about this, for months leading up. And we both listened to, Mandy's podcast and stuff. And like every time a new episode would come out, we'd be like, oh my gosh, did you hear this? Did you hear this? And like, so for this long time leading up to it. And I sat there with her and I told her, I was like, I bet I can figure it out. And then I was in a Facebook discussion group, and I put my chart in there, and somebody randomly asked me, hey, can you put that on Twitter? I was like, oh, I don't Twitter. I don't know how to, I don't do any of that. Yeah. And then I did, and it all of a sudden, I was like, well, maybe 10 people will see it. And then it was more than 10. But all of that just because I was like, I bet I can prove it. I bet I can.
That was amazing. I remember the morning I saw that tweet, and I was like, this woman has this whole thing figured out. You had it down to tenths of a second.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. And I got that sent to me dozens of times. And I was just getting all sorts of stuff sent to me. So I would be like, yeah, there's a lot of people on the internet that make maps and things.
Yeah.
A lot that aren't exactly accurate. But I pulled it up and compared it with notes and was like, oh my gosh, this is actually accurate and it's extremely helpful. And who is this girl? Can I hire her? And then you made your own YouTube channel, and I was like, yeah, go Brandi. She's really good at this. We need more of this. But yeah, I think it was kind of shocking the amount of people who just kind of refused to believe. They saw Alex as this almighty dad character, and even despite all of the bad things the bad facts that were against him, and because of the things that he's done, people still did not want to believe. And I was also weirded out by the amount of people that were like, okay, he might have killed Maggie, but no way could he have killed his son. And it's like, That's very horrible. That's a horrible thing to say.
The fact that people can be okay with killing a spouse, like, yeah, I can see that.
They're so, that's how they talk.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's supposed to be the most important person in the world to you. And you just think, oh, well, yeah, but your son, no.
Yeah.
There's no way you could kill your problematic son. And I think with me, it's just from the very beginning of all of this, even with just at the boat crash, it was an extremely complicated story. There's just so many layers with the Murdaughs that you have to understand. You can't just be like, oh, he's a dad, and dads never kill their sons. And it's power and money and your life collapsing and all of these other things, which I think Creighton did a great job of laying out, and you too, Dr. Kinney, laying out all the facts and like, this is what happened to this man. But yeah, it was pretty crazy the amount of resistance that we saw during the trial of people that just did not want to believe that Alex did it.
Yeah, and
I
even
still
now,
Miss Mandy, I still get it. Restaurants, I've had teenagers recognize me and shout me down, and my wife will grab me and say, just don't pay any attention to them. And they're like, a father wouldn't kill his son. Well, I've worked it a dozen times. I've seen it over a whole lot less. So,
right.
I don't mind everybody having their own opinion, because God, this is America. But know a little bit about the evidence before you come and make that argument.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that you get negative feedback in person.
Oh,
I've
yes,
I've never gotten that.
By design, I've never been on social media. And when this thing happened, everyone was, trying to contact me, and an attorney friend said, you really need to do it. So my wife helped me get it set up, and out of 100, I may get one or two. But, I'll tell you a funny story. We were in Blake Sheldon's restaurant up in Tennessee, and we had the most phenomenal waiter. I mean, he could have fit in there or at the White House. It didn't matter. He was just absolutely awesome. So I said, send out a tweet and let's just see if Blake Sheldon will answer me. I just want to tell him what kind of employees he has. And, somebody saw it and come back and said, well, I can't believe you and your family are out eating dinner, and Maggie and Paul are dead, and you're out spending Alex money.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It didn't take but about 2 minutes, and Kenny Kinsey's supporters came on there and just totally ripped this person to shreds.
Isn't that
But that is the mentality. That's what we're dealing with some of the haters.
And thank God for these armies of supporters. I mean, I saw him coming out for Mandy Matney today. You just have like this army of people who, when somebody comes in with a negative, that these folks just come out and shut them down pretty quickly.
Yeah, because there a lot of it's hard to struggle with because I am obviously a very vocal person. I don't like to hide my opinions, and I don't like when people spread false information about me and the people I love. And so I get into like defense mode of like, I'll show you, but then it's like, Mandy, you don't want to do that. Like, you just don't want. But instead, what's happened recently is I have all these supporters who just do it for me, and they take care of the emotional labor and all of the headaches that come with it. Because man, those people, and they, like you said, Dr. K, like they just don't understand, like. And they don't know anything about like how money is made in trials or like how money is, they don't understand any of it, and it's just horrific. But what I will say is that like I get it online all the time, but I've never once gotten it in person. And I live in South Carolina, and I get people that come up to me all the time. I take the dog for a walk, and a random person will stop their car and be like, I listen to your podcast. Like that happens all of the time, to the point where it's very weird. It's a weird world that I'm in. But I've never once had somebody in person say like, how dare you do that? Or I hate what you're doing or anything like that. So I think that goes to show that a lot of them are just small and scared.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
Speaking of your army, I wanted to show y'all this.
I love this woman.
I love her so much.
She's
This
so
is
great.
Kathy from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, which do y'all remember the Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo? Do you know where that her channel name comes from?
No.
Was it Poot that said something about how they don't want anything in this courtroom that's based on gossip, rumor, and innuendo. So she named her channel Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo because she's like that's the best part of it. So she named her channel after it. So this is Kathy, and she's got her super Mandy.
She is so sweet. I love her. She is so funny. Oh my gosh, she's another
so
one.
funny.
Who's extremely talented and just so good. Every YouTube that I've seen of her, she makes me laugh so hard, and I love that she's a fan. She's so sweet. Yeah, I love our fans. They're just awesome. We have a lot of the same fans, Brandi, and they're just like very positive, happy, smart. I love the intelligence of my audience. Like I don't have to dumb things down for them. They are very quick, and they'll catch things that I don't, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I love the positivity too. It's like y'all are saying, like when the crap starts, then it is like that army of like, nope, you are not getting into our little positive bubble with your BS. So just step it on back, and I love that. It's funny too that y'all talk, like you mentioned the inability to see the facts as what they are, and that almost like denial that so many people have about him being able, oh well, you can kill your wife, because
everybody thinks about that, right?
That's totally normal, but not the son. But something else that I've always thought was mind-blowing is that, everybody could like totally see, the financial crimes drove him to the point of being suicidal, but not homicidal. So it was a big enough deal for you to try to buy his lies about, how I just wanted to end my life. It was such a big deal that he could end his own life, but but thinking that it was such a big deal that he would end somebody else's life, that's too far. It's stuff like that if you're not rational, you're not rational.
I think in his mind, he thought he was saving them from a fate worse than death. Mm-hmm. Because I do believe he loved his family, but I do believe that they didn't yet know about his financial crimes. And that to him would have been absolutely awful. And that's gotta be churning in his mind when he's figuring this out. And he's thinking, I am going to save them from ever having to deal with the embarrassment of finding out what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mandy, do you think, have you seen the latest Netflix special? Has everyone seen that?
Yes. I swore I wouldn't watch the Netflix one because I hated season 1, but the season 2 is pretty interesting.
I was just I didn't actually watch season 1. There was too much going on, and I have had my beef with those guys.
Yeah. I know. That's what I felt like. It would be a betrayal of Mandy Matney for me to watch it.
I don't.
So I watched
I'm
it in
over.
secret and wasn't going to tell you, but yeah.
It's okay. No. I watched it this weekend too. So I'm like, oh, what does Cousin Eddie have to say?
Mm-hmm.
And Mandy, do you think Alex actually wanted to kill himself?
No,
because that's what Cousin Eddie is saying. He's saying that Alex said, "Shoot to kill me." Do you think he did that? What do you think, Dr. K?
Miss Mandy, sure he did. That's why he died. That's why he dialed 911 afterwards.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
With his little head scratch.
I have never believed it, never once. No. Like from the moment that I heard he was shot, it was like,
I know. I talked to you within an hour of that, and I was like, "Do you think there's something funny here?" And you're like, "Absolutely, there's something funny here. This is not." I was like, "Well, I just texted him, and I told him Mitch and I were praying for him, and Mitch told me to text him back and tell him that I was praying for him, but Mitch thinks he did it to himself."
Mitch is smart.
I know. And so I was like, that's what Mandy said, that she thinks there's something funny going on.
Real funny. Yeah, that's what everyone was saying. They were like, it's not adding up. That's all we're going to say right now. But like,
but it did have that initial, like, it's like, I think you've said it before, like that initial, like, oh crap, well, maybe somebody is out there. Like, until you hear the details, because obviously as soon as the truth starts coming out, then you're like, oh, okay, like, that car doesn't get flat tires, and the knife was like, I mean, just when that stuff comes out, it's like, bless your heart, like that's the best you can do. Like
that was pitiful.
You got money and connections, and that's the best you could do. But
and it did work for like a little for that. I remember scrolling through Facebook that night, and all of these people were like, prayers for the Murdaugh family. They've been through the unimaginable. I can't imagine how scared they are right now. And that was the overall. It didn't last long because the story fell apart extremely quickly.
Day was the financial crimes.
Yeah, right. The financial crimes, and then the tires, and he wasn't even on his way to Charleston. And he was at a different hospital. There was just thing after thing that Jake and Jim were saying that were just plain wrong. And that was insane. But it also I don't think nearly as many people would have cared about this story and would have watched it in the way that they did had that not have happened. I know my podcast went to #1 after that little incident. So thank you for being an idiot, Alec Murdaugh. But that just got the whole country involved, and all of a sudden, I'm not from here. I'm from Kansas, and all of a sudden, all my friends from home were texting me this is the guy that you've been following for all this time. And what's going on there, Mandy? They didn't really. A lot of people didn't pay attention to the murders until the shooting really happened. It was crazy how that all went down.
Yeah. I think it gave that initial sense of, oh wait, well maybe, maybe there is somebody out there. And then it was like, that's kind of what I think got a lot of people really involved in that moment. And then it was like, but then after that, it was like, well, wait a minute, is this guy did he really just do this to himself on the side of the road? And then him showing up in court with, ain't nothing but a Band-Aid on his head. That's not a fractured skull. And I mean, I'm no Dr. K, but I can look at a scrape, and that's the kind of stuff I told my youngin, go walk it off, you'll be fine. So,
Dr. Kinsey, how do you think he got that blood? Do you think it was falling on the pavement? What was that?
Well, Miss Mandy, I'm certainly, and I'm reminded of this now every time I go in a courtroom, because the solicitors who I used to try and help now go for the jugular vein, many of them. But looking at it, it did not look, and I'm trained in the pathology of gunshot wounds, it did not look like a gunshot wound to me. Mm-hmm. But as I've said several times, I'll never go against a medical doctor if they say something, but it's the oddest looking gunshot wound I've ever seen.
What could it be? What else did it look maybe consistent with? A fall?
Well, you can. 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 can tear skin or damage just having a weapon close enough, you know, to the muzzle, to the business end of that weapon. It's coming out and it's going, you know, in several different directions away from the barrel. It could be from the actual percussion of it, or it could have been he hit his head on the pavement. I don't know. And I hate to question it, but you know, when I first looked at it, and that wasn't my scope, that, you know, that wasn't my area, and I wasn't asked to do anything with that, because they certainly had medical doctors to give opinions. But, you know, looking at it, I said, well, that's kind of a strange looking gunshot wound. And then, like I said, I think about things later, because, you know, I don't ever like to do anything halfway, and I try to critique myself. I'm my worst critic. And it keeps going back in my mind. You dial 911, dial 911. I've worked many suicides, but have someone shoot you and then dial 911, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And really, it makes you look like a failure, because people say you can't even kill yourself right.
Right.
So I don't know. You know, I generally, y'all know, for 6 months, I didn't say a thing negative, and I probably need to wash my mouth out now, but it's just some of the absurdity and what people say to you, that, you know, we're all human. And I don't think I ever gave an interview that I didn't say this was the jury. That's their job. I don't get a say so. But, you know, just as being involved and wrapped up in this thing, we all get a say so. Yeah, and we all have a feeling toward it one way or the other. And it's just time for this nonsense. We knew that someone would get attacked and someone would get thrown under the bus. I was like, whew, man, I'm just glad it isn't me. But I've had celebrities, and I'll go on the you know, I'll go on the record and say it was not anyone from Court TV, but some people just want you to get on there and bash other people. And if I didn't bash Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin, and I've paid them much respect, I'm sure not going to get on TV and bash an elected official until things are vetted, and until somebody way smarter than me says this happened.
Yeah. I love hearing your input, Dr. K, because you have a way of explaining things that, because, you know, I say all the time, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor, I can work a spreadsheet now, but that's you know, that's where my talent ends with this stuff. And I love hearing you explain things. And I just saw this question, and I have to bring this up, because I think that this is funny, the whole coroner armpits thing, because when we lost Dr. K. We're there. Okay, you came back. You popped out for a minute. Because this weekend, when it was me and you and Carrie Rawson and Iked Mel were sitting there talking one night, and somebody had said something about the coroner armpits, and you told a funny story about the armpits, because I know you get asked about the armpits all the time. So I have to bring this one up, because we had just talked about this the other night, but about how you kind of were like, oh no, not the armpits.
Yeah, you know, one of my first speaking engagements was the South Carolina Coroners Association picnic. And I said, look, everyone in the country has, you know, had a comment about the armpit deal. So I called a friend of mine who was a very competent coroner. I'm not going to say the county, but I said, please don't tell me you do the fingers under the armpit thing to tell time of death. I said, Quincy had a liver probe and I was 4. So I know they can do this. And he said, oh no. He said, I know that's not scientific. He said, I touched the back of their neck with the back of my hand, and that's how I do it. So I'm like, no. We can't. We look real good across the country. So when I lectured at that Coroners Association, I told them, I said, look, guys, it's a little bit aggravating. Sometimes you might have to use a body blind. I said, but we have got to take an actual rectal temperature no matter what. I took a homicide that I'm currently working in Georgia, and I cropped out everything, and I actually put a shot of it in my presentation, how easy it is to do. And I said, please don't don't, and you know, said it with pride. Said it with pride. I just stick my fingers up in the armpits, and you know, and Miss Mandy being an attorney and now being on the prosecution side, but you know, on the other side too, you know that just gives ammunition to the defense. It
and
really,
you know, and the thing is, like,
anything.
I think he got it right, but
Mhm.
it looked really, really bad. And
Yes, ma'am.
it looked so country bumpkin, and it just, I mean, the whole country, the whole world is watching too, and they're like, oh, these people are so backwards. There's no way he could get time of death from that. And so, and I think he did, but it was not the ideal way to present that.
Well, I mean, time of death wouldn't have meant a lot because of
Right.
the cold rain, you know, the circumstances, the two victims laying out in the elements. So it really wasn't going to be that accurate anyhow.
No matter
We
what.
got a time we know they were still alive, and we're not that long after that. So, you know, I would have probably been safe and just said between here and here.
Yeah.
If they're not
It's just-
rigor, you know that how long that takes to set in. He didn't have to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And technology really gave us the time of death in this case.
Yes.
You could
Yes.
really tell with their phones and their movement what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did not look good. And I've been screaming about, I don't like a couple things. I don't like how our coroners are elected in South Carolina. I don't
Political
like
party too.
I don't like that they have to be Republican or Democrat. That is just the most absurd thing in the world. Like, if you go up to, what does being a Republican or Democrat have to do with being a coroner and saying time of death and all these things? And I also thought it was weird that the coroner said that what did he say? I didn't want to do the rectal thing because that was embarrassing. He like said that, and it's like, well, that's your job, and you either do it or somebody else would. And so I was kind of glad that it exposed our coroner, because as a local reporter, I've just been like, it would just be really nice if our coroners had to have like
A resume.
a degree, just some sort of background. Requirements, just some requirements and some serious training. They don't necessarily have to be medical examiners, but this business of like, oh, just however I feel. I touch their neck, I touch their armpits. It's just not good.
Yeah, it's one of those things that has stood out. And even anytime I have, like, I had just Scott Morgan on here, and somebody, and you know, because he's so fantastic too. And I know, Dr. K, you've done different panels and stuff with him before, and you know, we met him this weekend. He's fantastic. And that was one of the things even they asked him about. They were like, well, what do you think about the coroner armpits thing? You know, it's one of those things that has just been brought up over and over and over.
It's as funny as 5'2".
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I know. I was about to say how smart the defense was for having the coroner be first, but then you reminded us of the 5'2" gray boys, and was like that. The defense was not that smart, putting those 5'2" gray boys out there front and center.
No, that did not work.
So, okay, speaking of the gray boys and all of the ridiculousness. So now it was the cartel. According to Twitter.
Alex closed the door on that being a possibility. When he was going to testify, I predicted that he was going to tell a story that the cartel came to his house and said, you know, let's go out to the kennels, and you know, you give me the money you owe me, and blah blah blah. And then they killed his family in front of him and said, Buster's next unless you go steal me a bunch more money. And then he couldn't tell on him and all this. And I thought, that's the story he's going to tell. Now, I didn't say this before he testified, because then I thought, I'm going to hear this story again when he testifies tomorrow. But he didn't tell anything close to what would be of a believable story. He just he took your chart, Brandi, and looked at the things that could not make sense based on the lies he had told. And he just turned that dial just a little, to the point that he said he actually remembered stopping in his mama's driveway because his phone fell down beside the console, and fishing that out for 1.2 minutes and blah, blah, blah. Like you can remember that
Right.
something like that happened 9 or 10 months before or a year before. But that doesn't, the fact that he claimed to remember that made no sense. But he didn't tell a story that would fit with any kind of cartel. He shut the door on the possibility of there being other suspects. I think Alex
Right.
convicted himself when he testified.
Yeah. And he said something about how, no, the dogs weren't acting weird because nobody was out there.
Nobody was out there that shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about the cartel too, have you all ever heard of any cartel hits where they show up hoping that you left your own guns out there?
With Alex, though, they could pretty much guess that there was going to be some guns laying around. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the whole cartel thing is so ridiculous. And I mean, it's been a theory since day one, in a rumor going on, it was the cartel and Alex is up to, but it's just so impossible when, again, you look at all the facts and the evidence. And I remember while investigating a couple big moments that stood out to me in the weeks after the murders. I remember several different people telling me that the Murdaughs were living all over, Maggie will be here one night and here the next, and Paul is like a couch surfer. He just he's a kid, he hops around, and they're not really living at Moselle. And that was a big light bulb for me, because I was like, what cartel or what random people would select that time and place to kill? And this is, again, I don't think a lot of people from other states understand, or other places understand this, but it is the Murdaughs' territory. Going on to Moselle and killing 2 Murdaughs is like killing the president in Hampton County. It is the riskiest crime in the universe. So could it happen? Probably not. But when you start to look of oh, well, and they don't even go to the kennels at night. That's a weird thing for them to do too. And this and that, it just does not make, it could not be anybody besides Alex.
And then hearing Dr. Kinsey explain how messy it was, right? It wasn't a clean situation.
No, right, Miss Mandy, that 300 blackout could have been really efficient, really clean. Tap. I don't know what happened. It's just not it was overkill. It was unorganized. That was an amateur.
In emotion, right?
Ma'am?
I was told the same thing in the days after the murder. It was just this is not a hit job. It was way too messy. It doesn't a crime that's so messy like that also sometimes insinuate that it's an emotional crime, in that and you found a lot of more information, a lot more evidence that led up to this is a crime of passion, and that they were close to the shooter.
Yeah, well, I believe, Miss Mandy, I believe that, like I mentioned, there's not a lot that I really know, but I know ballistics, I know shotguns, I know shot shells. Something had to make Paul turn, because had he already been turned, I mean, I heard it this weekend from a fan, they shot him and he wasn't looking. No, I mean, for Paul to turn, you can't outrun that buckshot. So something had to happen for him to turn at the last moment. Was he trying to fight over the weapon? Was he trying to slap the weapon out from in front of him? I don't know. And that's why I didn't testify to it, because that's one of those things that you just assume. But I know that it should have put a hole big enough to read a newspaper through. And it barely caused a flesh wound. And that's got to be because of the movement. So, would a cartel do that, or would they wait for you to turn your back and just, tap you behind the ear? And I've worked several hits that were attributed to the cartel. None of them were now some of them are messy, but they're messy sending a message. They're not messy because you're a bad shot.
Right.
Dr. Kinsey, this is always kind of you said that the 300 would have been the easiest, cleanest weapon, but the ballistics are traceable there where shotgun shells are not. Do you think he intended to kill both of them with the shotgun, with one with birdshot and one with buckshot, so that it would be less
I'm
traceable.
told, Miss Mandy, I had to ask this, and this is something I didn't know. I'm told by some old timers, I live in a farming community, and hunting is big. And especially farmers that have a lot of acreage, many times they'll have water holes on their property where they hunt ducks. And, this is where they tried to throw David Owen under the bus and said he lied to the grand. He didn't lie.
No.
He just don't hunt ducks. He didn't say a number 2 dry lock, 100 pellet. He said birdshot.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'll do, they hunt ducks year round, no matter what's in season. Some of these people that have large acreage. Mm-hmm. And, Alex said that they were riding around looking for hogs. I think everyone heard that. Mm-hmm. But then in another statement, he said hogs don't come out in the daytime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when they go into these holes, I was told it's called an outlaw load. And you'll put a buckshot in amongst those other 2 shells just in case you jump up a nice deer, or in this instance, you come across a hog. Because I've been chased by a boar. I've been chased by a sow. It's not fun. And I don't move that fast anymore. So, that is very believable. And then Paul was a bit of a wild card, but I told the truth. I believe he was very capable. But if he handled weapons that much and he carried them with him all the time, hopefully he was safe. And if you're safe, you're going to take the shell out of the chamber. Got 3, take 1 away, you've got 2 left. And 2 should have been enough. Yeah. But something made Paul move at the last moment, I suspect. And, it was a nasty flesh wound, but that was a 1 in a million shot. But I'm told that's called an outlaw load. And I've actually been told by several much more senior farmers since I testified. They said, son, you don't know what that is. I said, no, sir. I said, I guess, just in case he come across one. He said, yeah. He said, we call that outlaw load. And they explained it to me. I've got some acreage. I don't have any duck holes. And if I did, I wouldn't go to them, and hunt like an outlaw. But that's what they told me. They always keep 1 buckshot in the weapon just in case.
And shotgun shells are they traceable?
Not a bit. Not unless you actually have the shot shell casing, and you can sometimes match the firing pin. Okay. Or the extractor marks, but definitely not the ballistics.
Thank you.
Another thing about the cartel thing too is the dogs. The cartel wouldn't have, with the dogs being. I noticed that they made a point about the dogs being put back up in not the right kennels. Cartel ain't gonna shoot you with your own guns, hoping y'all have some, and then put your dogs up.
Put your dogs up. Yeah.
That's another. This is just common sense, y'all, and that's one of the things that makes me so mad about some of the people who are like, "Well, this could have happened." I'm like, "Well, and
the perverted logic that it takes to get your head to that place of thinking, oh, the cartel put their dogs up. That's why they didn't know which kennels the dogs belonged in." It's insane.
And not to be the you guys weren't around then, girl, but a lot of the people who are saying these things had just heard of the Murdaugh family in February. I've noticed that a lot. They're they think they know everything, and it's like for instance, if you were paying attention back in 2021 after the murders, Alex and Buster were not acting like there was a murderer on the loose. And I can't stress that enough. I know this because, again,
the trial lawyers convention.
They were at very predictable places that they would be at, like the trial lawyers convention, the Governor's Cup fishing tournament, places with lots of people that they weren't in hiding at all. I was constantly getting pictures of Alex and Buster, they're out here, they're at this restaurant, blah, 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 blah. And they just did not do a good job, Alex included, of expressing any fear or I'm terrified. And again, his call to Buster was, 40 minutes after he found them? It was 42,
Miss Mandy.
42. Great job, Dr. Kinsey.
It's on the chart.
I'm a little rusty. But 42 minutes to call your son and warn him that I think that would be your first instinct as a father and a human being to protect your other living son. And
But
make
it was
sure,
to call Rogan Gibson.
Yeah.
That
and
was
the
the first
cover it up. Yeah, exactly. His instincts obviously were very different. And I don't understand the mental gymnastics that people are doing for Alex Murdaugh right now. I don't know if they're just bored and they just want to argue about something.
Well, Miss Mandy, I don't
get it.
think people realize, I don't think the common person realizes that it's not beyond all doubt.
Right.
You know, I think that the average person thinks, well, you didn't prove that 105%.
Right.
Right.
They
But
don't
it's a
understand our
reasonable
system.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I remember seeing that on Twitter a couple times, and that was a big light bulb for me because somebody was like, I think it was an attorney saying it's beyond a reasonable doubt, not any doubt. Like you can't just say
I can make something up in my head.
Right. What if aliens came down and killed Maggie and Paul? Well, that's not reasonable. So,
Right.
Yeah.
It's still more reasonable than the cartel, though. So
correct.
I mean, but yeah, but reasonable doubt has to be reasonable. So that's that's the problem that some of those other theories have.
Right.
You can't take it seriously.
Yes.
And I think the jury was thinking in the same way I was, is you have to it's human instinct to be like, well, if it wasn't him, who could have possibly, and there was no, with the timeline, and it's the timeline and the evidence
There's nobody
collectively
else
as
it
a
could have
whole,
been.
there is just nobody else it could have possibly have been.
Yeah.
And also combined with the fact,
Well, too, I've been there and like I've expressed how beautiful this property is, but the middle of this property is not on the highway.
Right.
So if, just say if right after the video that he lied to his attorney all the way up to getting on the stand, even if the video, was right and he didn't do it, he would have passed whoever did do it on the way out.
Yeah.
Headlights, something. Or
Exactly.
why would the cartel not go to that beautiful home and kick in the door and get him?
Right.
I'm gonna get this lady and this young kid, and I'm gonna let you go when you don't owe us money according to the testimony. You pay your drug debt.
Right.
I don't know why. I worked narcotics 30 years ago, and it wasn't even done that way back then. So I don't understand that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
well, and that's an extremely risky crime for anybody that is not a Murdaugh, because this day and age, you assume that everybody, especially the more money you have cameras, you have, and again,
I think people would have reasonably assumed if they wanted to do the Murdaugh's harm that these people certainly have cameras.
They have guns.
Lots of guns.
Everybody
Again,
at
Lots
the
of
station.
guns.
Again, it is like the most riskiest crime that people in Hampton and Colleton could possibly imagine, is to go on to Moselle, where all the guns are, and shoot Maggie and Paul in the tiny slice of time that Alex happened to leave, and it's just impossible.
Yeah. And he never, as Alan Wilson often says, he never said, if I had just stayed there 2 more minutes, they'd be alive now. And he immediately lied to law enforcement about not being there. If he didn't know when they died, how would he know what little tiny slice of time to lie about?
Well, Mandy, too, he said that the reason he lied is because of his distrust of SLED. But he framed that lie with dispatch. He framed that lie with the deputy sheriffs that arrived on the scene. And this isn't my idea. Creighton brought this up in his presentation.
Yeah.
If it was SLED, you started framing this an hour and a half before SLED ever got on the scene.
Right.
Right. And you were a prosecutor, Alex, at that time. Why would you distrust SLED? That doesn't make any sense. And your father was sending lots of people to prison with the help of SLED for many years. And working with SLED. So your distrust of SLED makes zero sense.
I know. And he said it had to do with the
Greg Alexander.
Greg Alexander thing. That was bizarre to bring
Yeah.
him into this, where he's worked with SLED in so many ways that, hand in hand throughout his
Right, but
career.
I think he just acts like this. He's always acted like this. He's always just used to saying something and people being like, that's gotta be
Yes,
it. And I think it all just caught up with him.
I know so many people like that who they're lying to you. They're lying to you, but they're so used to people just going along with it and pretending to believe them that they really do think everybody believes what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. I want to ask too about let me take a couple questions first, because I got so many questions of my own, and let me not ignore all of the people who have sent me stuff in. All right. So this one came from an email. They asked about who changed on Maggie's will, who changed Marion to Randolph. And I don't remember who did it. I remember that Marion kind of like washed her hands of it, didn't want to be involved in it, right? As far as like the estate, she didn't want to be, which I mean, can't blame her for that, but I don't know who actually changed it.
It wasn't a lawyer. There's no way a lawyer would have done that, because that arguably invalidates a will when it has handwriting on it in South Carolina.
I remember you telling me that, and that was just another weird thing that I can't remember if we found out who did it or not, or what their purpose, but I remember Mandy saying that like a lawyer wouldn't do that. And that was just one of many weird and bizarre mysteries. Yeah.
Because I remember here, and I can't remember, there was it was like information overload for those few months. But so I remember hearing that, Marion didn't want to have she kind of wanted to wash her hands of it. But I don't remember if I ever heard who was actually the one who appointed, him of all people. All right. So here's another one. If Murdaugh is granted a new trial in South Carolina, will he be immediately transferred to federal prison to serve that sentence, or will he remain in state jurisdiction with conditions of pretrial, no bail, while he awaits the new murder trial?
I believe that he would have to be released of his bond in order to be transferred to federal prison. And let me preface this by saying I'm a baby prosecutor. I did civil forever. And so I am not sure. Dr. Kinsey might know better than me on that one. But
no, ma'am, I'm going to drop back and point to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know the cases I have had that were convictions that were thrown out or overturned, they were granted bail. Mm-hmm. And actually, the couple times it's happened, every time the defendant passed from natural causes before they ever got a retrial. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he would still be, because of primacy of the charges.
Right, and he still has like a $7 million bond on the financial crimes alone that he got before he was charged with murder. So from what I've heard, they're trying to get him into federal prison, but it's going to be very, 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 very difficult. There's like so many things that have to happen.
And there were two. Now, it was a crazy busy weekend, and I didn't have a chance to look into this much yet, but there were two filings that had errors on them, recent ones, right? Is that?
Are you talking about
from the defense?
The defense filing for a new trial?
Yeah.
The error there was the requirement that the filing itself be accompanied by an affidavit from the defendant saying how, when how he learned about the alleged after discovered evidence, that being the allegations that Becky Hill had communicated with a juror or jurors about the evidence in the case. And because the defense did not attach an affidavit from Alex Murdaugh explaining those elements in their original motion, then it was flawed. And the state cited case law that said it's essential. Like, you have to tell when and how the defendant learned about it, because if the defendant knew about it before the end of the trial, then they can't now make a motion for after discovered evidence. So there has to be an affidavit saying basically that he didn't know about it until after the trial. The defense did not include that in their original motion. So the state said, okay, we'll let you correct that and then we'll answer. And then the defense was really mad and said, oh, you're just playing games. That's not fair. But then eventually they added the affidavit.
Gotcha. So while we're talking about all the new filings, because I know everybody wants to know what y'all's opinions are on the, the stuff with Miss Becky and the stuff with a lot, because I'll be honest, I've read through it. And a lot of the stuff seems like fluff to me, like the stuff with the Facebook post.
Right. It's like they emptied their junk drawer on some paper, and like there's one or two things that have some value in there, but a lot of it is just like filler.
Right.
That's their move, though. We've seen them do that with several motions and several moves that they've done. It's like, say something super attention-grabbing and salacious that gets all the headlines. And then fill it with 40 pages of nothing.
Right.
And granted, there were serious allegations in there. We all have to say that. But those serious allegations were made from very not credible people that have not earned credibility throughout this entire trial. And that's where I'm at with that. I mean, I think just knowing what I know and following other cases, it's very, very, very difficult to get a new trial in our system. But Dick and Jim are trying their darndest, and they seem to have like a multi-step plan. Liz called it their vision board for getting Alex into.
Liz is so funny.
Liz is so funny. Their vision board for getting Alex into federal prison. But I mean, it's would be insane. But everything's insane. What do you think, Dr. K?
Well, I think Miss Brandi heard me say it today. Thank God I'm not the one that has to make that decision, and I'm so thankful my name isn't attached to it. But I've got to put my faith in those jurors. I have to, 30 years ago, I was the one that got mad when I got tore up in court and some baby prosecutor eats my lunch. And, I want to put his picture on the wall and throw darts at it. But I'm not like that anymore. I've learned that it's better to stay in your lane. And I got to have faith in those jurors. I was there every day, or I was watching remotely. But Creighton came to me very early on and said, I want you here, sending questions, answering questions, that kind of thing. And I got to watch those jurors every day. And I've said it all along, those men and women are the judge, and Judge Newman is the referee. And I believe that. I believe that in my heart. And I have got to have faith in them, because if they told that judge every day, no one's talked to me, no one's tried to influence me, and you got 6 weeks, then they weren't doing their job. And I can't believe that, because they did it for $20 a day. They were away from their families. And I know one person in particular has a bone to pick, and she probably, she's embarrassed. What said, and I also know that when a defense attorney comes to you 6 months after a trial, jurors or witnesses don't always tell them the truth. Sometimes you'll tell a person what you want to tell them to get them to leave you alone. So it's just so many dynamics in this thing. But I went on the record, I will go on the record, and I'll always be on the record until they vet it and tell me that those men and women that I locked eyes with for 5 hours on that stand, you're going to have to tell me, and you're going to have to vet it and tell me that they didn't do their job, because right now I'll stand with all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a good point. Because they are, I can imagine, and we've talked about this before, like, you would not know it with Mandy Matney being in the same room with them, like, because I know that one of my biggest things, like, I always say, like, I won't say anything outright ugly, but I'll say I'm not a fan. And they are, no offense to you, Matney, they are not your fans. We all know that. But you don't let that intimidate you. And you still are just, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Like, when it comes to them, like, you don't let his mess, intimidate you or change you in any way. I don't think they're used to that. If you have those two goons, on your front porch, pressuring you to, talk and stuff, I could see where that would be something where you would, kind of, and they are very skilled at leading a conversation. So I can see how that could potentially be a factor in that. So I would have to hear from the rest of the jurors too. I don't trust them. Their credibility is shot.
And Brandi, I think that's a good point. When you look at the affidavits, 2 of them had to come from a paralegal who attended the interrogation. And one of them said, well, this juror would have signed her affidavit, but we had scheduling conflicts. Well, that was a long time ago now, and they have filed supplemental affidavits. If she was willing to sign, then, she could have signed by now. But so what it sounds like is they did the interviews, went back and prepared the affidavits. And in that interim of time, 2 of those jurors who had indicated that they would sign an affidavit said, you know what? No, I don't want to be a part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And whoever listens to, let me not be petty Betty. Somebody listened to the what do they call themselves? What's their little podcast? What do they call themselves?
The presumption.
Presumption. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody listened to it. And they said that they heard them saying on the podcast that this, and it's there was a screenshot of the transcripts from YouTube where you can see it, and they said that she didn't feel comfortable signing it, so, or however it was worded. So all of a sudden it wasn't a scheduling thing. It was, she didn't feel comfortable or whatever it was. So however they worded it. You saw that too, Mandy? Yeah,
we saw that too, and I think that's another thing that's gonna really get them, is that they're clearly on a PR campaign, and they have been ever since the Fox Nation documentary came out, and to spin their story and twist their narrative. And I just don't think, but I think that a lot of this extra PR is going to come back to bite them, because I think they're saying too much. I think they are going too far in doing these press conferences. There's little things that they're saying that is different from their filings, and it's just a little sloppy. And again, I don't think that they're used to being questioned. And look, like when I first started, like, publicly calling out Dick and Jim, and that was right after the shooting in 2021, and Dick said his sexist remarks about me in court. I was like, this is what people were warning me about this guy, because people were like, oh, you're saying that about Dick Arputian on Twitter? Oh my God. And it's like, well, what is he? Who cares? I don't care. He's a senator. And now with all of what's going on with Becky, I'm the same way, Dr. K. I feel like I could be Becky. I feel like they could have switched around the truth and forced people into affidavits, and I could be in Becky's position right now, which is being vilified in front of the whole world, and her credibility's lost. And I don't know. The sad thing is, I don't know if she's ever going to be able to get that back. And I hope that she does. I hope that they find out what happened, and I hope that they get to the truth of that. But beyond that, if they accused Becky of things that are completely false and have completely destroyed her reputation and career, they should go to court for that too. And that should be a whole nother, because that should not go on in our system. And
well, Miss Mandy, no disrespect to Miss Mandy Powers Norrell, you know, attorneys are taught. I've went to an attorney before, a prosecutor, and said, man, I hate to deliver this message. And you walk in there and you say, you know, X, Y, and Z, and they look at you and wonderful. We'll do it. We'll swing it this way. And I mean, that's just an attorney thing.
Right.
And, you know,
it's advocating.
I have to watch it when I'm on the stand because they can twist it up just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if you slip and say what they want you to say, then, you know, are you lying now or are you lying then?
Right.
So I can see a layperson or a juror being intimidated and just telling them something.
Yeah.
Just please, just leave me alone. Right. I'm intimidated.
And Dr. Kinsey, I think that's one of the reasons people love you so much is you were masterful at handling those kinds of questions on the stand. I mean, I can't name another person in law enforcement who is as good as you at testifying, because you would, you know, I loved it when you said, it's a cone. I've told you that, you know, it was just sort of, you know, everybody knows what they heard. And then he's like asking you these questions and totally trying to muddy the waters. And you just brought him back to let's just be logical. Let's use common sense. And you were really, really amazing at it.
Well, thank you, ladies. I've got my challenge coins ordered. And it's going to be a big shock to all of you. But when they come in, I promise you, I'll get each one of you one. And you know, it was a special moment, but it wasn't disrespect. Please do not think it was disrespect. Certainly toward the victims and certainly not toward the defense attorneys. It was just a way to say, please back off.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of a wild card. And if you take me down that direction, I'm going to answer.
Right.
And so it's just something that's worked for me over the years. And when it doesn't work for me, we'll change it to something else. But so far, it's been okay.
And I think it was the perfect response. Like it was just, it was that calm, you know, gentility but still like, you know, like, you
really?
know, yeah, like I see what you're doing here and you might want to back it up a little bit. I'm still smiling. I'm still going to be nice, but you know, but I'm going to embarrass you in a minute if you don't back on up. And I think it was the perfect response. And it not only did it get the point across, but I mean, we even have like, I don't know if y'all can see on the YouTube thing, like we even have like it's a cone emoji. Like it's one of those things that was like, yeah. So it's one of those things. I think it was the perfect response because they do have that way of trying to push. And like, if they can be a little bit louder and a little bit more aggressive, then they can, you know, convince people that they're yapping is where we're going with this. And I think it was, you know.
And if you can get a juror confused, a lot of people, especially in the South, we want to give people what they want. And so we're ready to doubt ourselves a lot of times. So you know, where that was going was this notion that bullets would jump around like that and not, you know, go in, move in a cone. And Dr. Kinsey has this amazing way of imparting knowledge to jurors that makes them feel smart because it aligns with their experience of the world and common sense. And when you make a juror feel smart, they're a lot more inclined to continue to see things your way. And it's just, he's just so masterful at testifying. And I'm sorry I'm fangirling, but I just, I wish I had you in all my cases.
Yeah, I just wanted to repeat that same thing. I mean, I think that was a huge difference. I think you made a huge difference. And I think the way that you came across was somebody that they could relate to and trust. And not just your words, but your just how polite you are, how just genuine. You just came off as a genuine person, where Dick came off as I'm not going to curse, but
not relatable.
And very condescending. There was so many times that I'm sure the jurors were like, I'm not going to listen to this guy. I can't, like, he's screaming at us and he is not talking to us in a way that anybody would respond to.
Right.
And again, like, I think the prosecution won fair and square, and I think that right now the defense is just whining about that. And
One thing that I saw on Twitter too that I thought was really interesting with this whole filing, a lot of the stuff that they said that Becky said, and I pulled it up right here. A lot of the stuff that they said that Becky said, if y'all don't follow Julie Carpenter on Twitter, she's so smart.
She's
I love her.
awesome. Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
She's fantastic. She had posted that she said a wise person commented on one of my tweets and said that it was Creighton Waters who said, "Don't be fooled" in his closing statement, which is correct. So she went back to the opening and closing to see if there was more, and this is what she found. So the juror statement, and then Creighton Waters opening and closing. So like there are so many things, and I won't go through the entire on and on and on. Yeah.
So many things in the affidavits that are attributed to Becky Hill were said by Creighton Waters or by Judge Newman or by others, and almost like verbatim. Yeah. So it makes you think, are the jurors confused? Because otherwise it's like, is Becky Hill like plagiarizing the attorneys? Is that what they're accusing her of? Because it's word for word what was already said to the jurors in the trial by others.
And I don't buy it for a second that Becky's book made these jurors all of a sudden have these memories of this going on. And I feel like this is all a part of their plan.
If I'm on the defense and that book's coming out, though, I'm real excited about it. It's going to be like Santa Claus came to town, because you have a thick book. You can go line by line to try to find something that gets you to that lower standard for the Rimmer hearing, because you don't have to show that that what happened actually changed the result. You only have to show that it could have changed the result when it's a communication from a court official to a juror. And so, and a lot of things they put in there were not communications by a court official to a juror, but it reduces the standard from had to change it to could have changed it. And, with the stakes being as high as they are for Alex, that book was like a gift from heaven for them.
Right.
Yeah. I want to pull up your Twitter too, Mandy. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that, Jennifer. I want to pull up your Twitter where you had the case law stuff and let me see if I can find it. Unless you have, do you have it on your
I don't
computer?
have it, but I do. I have some of the case law.
Okay.
The Parker v. Gladden was the U.S. Supreme Court case where a bailiff told a juror as they were going into deliberations, he's guilty, that wicked man. And that's what set the standard in 1966 for the Rimmer hearings based on the actions of a court official. But there are like 5 elements that you have to show. It has to be an actual communication to a juror by a court official about the evidence that could have changed the result. And so that was enough in the Parker v. Gladden case to get them a new trial. And so that's what's kind of scary. But when you distill down the allegations in these affidavits, most of them have nothing to do with those 5 elements of communication from a court official and all that. You've got a juror saying, I felt pressured to vote guilty, but that pressure came from other jurors, and that's what deliberations are about. And because, not everybody's going to be thinking the same thing when you start deliberations, and you persuade each other. If there's a problem with that, you bring it up before the trial ends.
Right. And I just retweeted that for anybody that wants to look at it. Like if you haven't seen it, I just retweeted it again. So it'll be at the top of my timeline so you can see it. But that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting because, anytime they cite case law, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I'm just the chart lady. So I was enjoying looking at your stuff because, like Mandy Matney said earlier, like you have a way of taking the law and like kind of breaking it down to make it, much more digestible and understandable. So I appreciate the way you did that. But looking at the case law was really interesting to me. And there was another post you had that was somewhere around here too. That was on the affidavit, the parts that were the most concerning to you. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, like I said, in these affidavits, when you get down to it, there really were just only a few things. And Juror 785, I ignored a lot of what she had to say because it was about a Facebook post that the judge said that was not the reason that she was let go. So, and two, that Facebook posting was so, discombobulated and everything. And I do think it could have very well been just a mistake on her part, because the email comes in and she says, well, let me look into this, and, trying to be helpful and all that. I don't think she was trying to frame anybody, but, you've got a juror who said she didn't talk about the case with anybody. And then you've got 3 people who said, yeah, she talked about it with me. So, that's a credibility issue there. Then you've got several others, a couple others who wouldn't even sign the affidavits. So that tells me they had an issue with what the affidavits contained. So then you're down to like juror 630, who really doesn't have a whole lot to say in terms of a communication about the evidence that could have changed the result. Juror 630 is saying that Becky Hill told them, don't be fooled, which if she did say that to the jury, that is concerning and could meet the standards of the Rimmer hearing. This is also the juror who's upset about not being allowed to smoke, which is not a communication about the evidence. So it does not enjoy that lower standard of review. And that was something that could have been brought to their attention if it was a big issue before the trial ended. The notion of the communications with the juror 4 person, we don't know what that was about at all. My theory is that the 4 lady of the jury and Becky Hill were talking about a problem juror and trying to negotiate personalities there. So, when you come down to it, these things look really bad at the offset, but there really are just maybe about 3 or 4 little things in there that that ultimately could get them to a Rimmer hearing. Now they only need 1 to actually get them to a Rimmer hearing. I thought when I first read it, it was going to be the where she wrote in her book that we were communicating, I knew it and they knew it. We said with our eyes that he's guilty. But a communication has to be a 2-way street. And they don't have a single affidavit where a juror says they received that communication. Even if Becky was, like I've said before, I speak eyeball. If we're in the South, we know what that means, when you communicate with your eyes. But there was not a single juror who said they received that communication and understood it to mean that. And you have to have a sending and a receiving for it to actually be a communication. So I don't think that one ultimately rises to the level, even though she's saying that in her book, that they communicated with their eyes. So the notion of her saying this shouldn't take long, that's not a communication about the evidence. It's when you really distill it down, there are only a few that I think they're ultimately going to be talking about when it comes to the evidentiary parts that get them to the Rimmer hearing.
And I think one of the things that Mandy Matney said too on I can't remember if it was Cup of Justice or True Sunlight, but on one of them you said, if there were a juror who was like, oh, I think, I really need a cigarette, so I'm going to send him to prison for the rest of his life so that I can, get out here. And that, is that realistic? Is that something that, that we would expect to be a real thing? Like that's it. And if it was, would you really trust the credibility of that person, anyway?
Right. How about, I think my favorite thing recently was Dick and Jim's supplemental filing with the Facebook double down, and they found that random guy in Georgia
who had the same name as the ex-husband
and posted like drunkenly about his wife's aunt or something. And then he had nothing to do with any of this. And this poor guy in Georgia has to sign an affidavit saying, like, sorry, I got drunk on Facebook and yelled at my wife's aunt.
And then apologized.
And it has nothing to do with anything. And it's like, oh my gosh, they are doubling down. Like, this is just getting ridiculous.
And also,
that poor man.
while they're filing supplemental affidavits, why not file Alex's affidavit that's required at that point? Why not file an affidavit from the juror who said she just really didn't have time to come and sign it? You know, if you're spending your time doing supplemental affidavits, they're going to pick this guy in Georgia who drunk posted instead of the affidavits that would advance the case. I thought that was so bizarre.
And then had his wife or somebody sign. That was I am no writing expert. I'm not a lawyer or a doctor or a writing expert, but that signature, did y'all see that?
Like a lady.
Yeah, it looked odd.
Yeah. Jams, thank you so much for the super chat. MPN by Harpootlian saying in the press conference that he saw the communication with the juror at Moselle. Did he truly make himself a witness?
He not only made himself a witness, which, I mean, you know, we're lawyers, as we're investigating things or as we're like representing our clients and learning about cases, we become witnesses. Like Jim he was at Moselle during the interviews, he was there, he was a witness. It's not so much that he made himself a witness, but he sort of revealed something he didn't want to reveal about one of the basic elements of the motion that he filed. And one of the things in order to get the Rimmer hearing is you have to show that this was not information that was available to you before the close of trial. And when he said in the press conference, I was there, I saw it, whatever, at Moselle, he is saying this is information that was available to me before the close of trial. And I think he did not mean to go there. Dick Harpootlian's a smart man. It's always like people who disagree with us, it's helpful when they're not smart. And we always want to think that they're not smart. It's very inconvenient when they are. And I a lot of times say he plays chess while other people play checkers. That slip up there, that was some checkers. That was not something that I think he wanted to reveal because it is what my child would say, a self-own. He really kind of, revealed something that was not good for his case there. He said, we observed it. I was there. I watched it. And if he actually watched it, then he had this information before the close of trial. And that shuts the door on a lot of what he's claiming or a lot of the necessary elements for him to be successful in the motion.
I think about too that, well, it's not hearsay if I said it. Oh my gosh, that was one of my favorite moments of the trial too. When you're talking about them like kind of making themselves witnesses and stuff. And when he objected, it was Jim, right? When he objected to hearsay and he's like, or somebody objected to hearsay. He's like, well, it's not hearsay if I said it.
Oh my God. I did a primer on what hearsay is after that, sitting in court one day, waiting on one of my cases to be tried. I was like, let me just kind of like tell everybody what hearsay is and isn't, because there was a lot of hearsay talk in there and it got really confusing.
That was hilarious. All right, I have more questions that were sent by email. Let's see. Thank y'all for the super stickers, super chats. All right, let's see. I noticed while listening to the police body cam video that Alec was off to the edge of the video talking with someone. He started raising his voice and yelled something to the effect, "Do you really think I would shoot my own son for real? I've always wondered who he was talking to when that happened."
Did y'all know that?
Say that again. Sorry, I spaced out.
What she sent the link. Let's see. He was on the body cam. You can hear him holler out, "Do you really think I would shoot my own son for real? And I've always wondered who he was talking to when that happened." I actually, let's see. She gave a timestamp. Let's see if we can hear who it is. I took on the chart, because y'all know I'm a crazy person. On the chart, I took who he was talking to based on the time of the,
and you matched it up.
I matched it up. And he said who he said he was talking to is not who he was actually on the phone with, according to the timestamps. Because he said he was talking to Randy, but that timestamp when they first walked up and he's over there on the phone, it was not Randy. That's when he was calling Rogan again. So that was another one of the lies that I pointed out in the chart. But let me see if I can.
Did y'all know that? I mean, I've never heard that said before.
Yeah, let's see.
I do see some. That look old or fresh? Old, yes.
Is that it?
Did you hear?
Barely hear him.
I might have heard something, but
I'll just hold the light for you. Go all the way to that post.
Let me fast.
Lonnie, let's just keep our fingers crossed.
I would think that would have come out if he had said that.
Responding units to Moselle Road stop at the road. No one else come down the dirt road. Stop at the road.
I don't hear his voice yet.
I could hear just like
too.
I could hear him. He was kind of screaming. Could you hear that, Mandy?
I could hear it, but I couldn't tell what he was saying.
I might have to try to clean that.
I would think
some
that
and
if the
see.
prosecution knew about that or heard that, they would have used it. It's something that I'd never heard anybody say before, but I'm really bad at detecting what people are saying on videos.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting when they came up, because the way that I lined it up, and that's it, so I went over all of this stuff and I didn't hear it, but I could have missed something. I definitely could have missed something, but or could have heard it and forgot it, whatever. But I thought it was really interesting that it was another lie. He lied to them, and this is verifiable facts because I put these specific timestamps of when they're calling things in on that thing. So, and he's, I'm just on phone with my brother. No, you weren't. You were calling Rogan again. Why are you calling Rogan? Why are you calling him? What are you trying to get in touch with him for?
Well, the other thing is, like, these videos came out during the trial when there was just all of this other evidence for everyone to go through. There was every day we would have to re-listen to a lot of testimony. Did they say this? Did they say so? I'll be honest, like, I don't think I went through. That was just a piece of evidence that I didn't.
That's true.
Stop to look through it, and
that's not one that you had a long time before.
No,
trial.
it just, we were just bombarded by a lot of things, and I could see a lot of people not picking up on something like that because it took weeks when the 911 call came out initially, and that, and
it was redacted.
Right, and with audio, like, people can hear, it's just so hard, and technology really isn't that great to, like, separate things, and if you pick up a voice or you pick up a certain thing, but, like, the 911 call, a lot of people heard, "Why'd you have to get involved, Paul?" I heard it very clearly, but I don't hear it, and that's just one of those things that's like, does it help anything? No. Is it interesting? Right. Yeah. But that took people like a really long time to figure out. So this would not surprise me if there was something, little nuggets in there. And that's a good reminder. I'm going to go through that video now.
Yeah. There was another question that was emailed to me. If Alex were innocent, why is there not a huge initiative to find the killer? Well, there was a reward for like 6 hours or something that was offered. So
till September.
Yeah. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, the reward was interesting because all of a sudden, like a lot of people on Twitter were saying that for weeks. Like, why aren't the Murdaughs offering an award if they have all this money? Where's the reward? And then it seemed like they were kind of cornered into offering a reward.
Right.
And then it came out and it was, a reward with a deadline of September? That doesn't make any sense. And that makes all of this even weirder. And all my friends in law enforcement were like, I've never seen a reward with a deadline, so something has to be up here. And I think it's just another thing that they don't really think things through. I think Alex is just used to being like, get off my back, it's a reward, I'm great. And everybody being like, yay.
But then Mandy, like, you could have claimed that reward. Like, if they hadn't had a deadline on it, you could have been like, look, I solved it. Got this podcast. I've been telling y'all.
But whose money would that even have been? Like, it probably was stolen money that they were offering a reward.
It was in the
from.
receiver's hands by the time you would have claimed it.
It's just so crazy.
All right, this question is, let's see. My question arose from season 2 of the Murdaugh murders. In the trial, they showed us Alex's text to Maggie that said, "Call me, babe." Bleh. But on the show, they showed a second text following that one to Maggie saying, "Call me, emergency." Oh, I didn't see that on the show. What was his emergency? It couldn't have been anything about his parents because he knew how they were. It couldn't have been that Paul was shot because he would have seen Maggie dead too. It would have been great to hear him try to explain that lie. I did not see that on the show. Did y'all?
I saw that. And I thought it was just something I had missed. Is that real, Dr. Kinsey? Do you remember?
I don't remember, Miss Mandy. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the text when I did my reconstruction, but that is interesting. But I'm sure Peter, the SLED agent that did the timeline, I'm sure that would have, come to his attention, and I didn't hear it touched on.
Now, Netflix played fast and loose with the facts in season 1. Yeah. So that may not have even been real.
Yeah. I remember the "call me, babe," and I remember the emergency text, but I just don't remember the order of it. And that the "call me, babe" thing was just so creepy when you really feel like it. What? I can't read that.
When you know.
David is trying to pull something up from.
It's not a
okay.
document.
Okay, I can't see it.
Was it in your chart, Brandi?
That's what I'm actually I'm looking at right now because I have it. I have the charts on my website. Let's see. That was. Oh, this was I have that part highlighted. Remember when I spent all night up on the steps? Mandy and I said, and I was like, "Oh, I found something on the step data that was wrong." And
when you texted me that morning, and I was like, I'll try to get this to the AG for you.
Yeah, and then I saw them enter it in at lunch, and I was like,
"That was amazing."
That was really cool. All right, let's see So this is where he left. So it would have been. I don't.
So would that have been a text when he was driving back from Alameda?
Calls Maggie. Oh, here Rogan calls Paul. Arriving at Alameda. Yeah, this. Okay, so. Multiple calls. Oh my gosh, I need my old lady glasses. I don't see the emergency one.
I don't remember that.
Unless if they may have shown it and it could be out of order because I have everything in chronological order. So they may have shown it out of order unless I just need.
Wait. So the text was to, David just pulled this up for me.
Okay,
and
good.
the text was to Randy Murdaugh. Call me, please. Emergency at 10:18.
Oh, yeah. That one. Okay. So they just had it after. Yeah. Here it text Randy, please call me emergency. Sent 1 minute after he called. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I know that when you spend so much time on something and you know the facts on stuff, and then you watch a documentary and you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute. It makes you question everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know the star of that show anyway. It was Dr. K. So he was.
Yes. Oh, I was so thankful they had Dr. K in
Oh my
season
gosh.
2.
Yes, me too. All right, let me see what other questions I had emailed to me. I know we had time for a few more. Let's see. I think some of these y'all have already answered. I've gotten a few about do you think that Becky is guilty of what they're saying? Does anybody think that she's guilty of jury tampering based on what we've seen so far? Because innocent until proven guilty.
Right. I don't think
Absolutely.
she intentionally did a thing wrong. I don't
No.
think she was trying to change their verdicts. I don't think that, and I also don't think that's the allegation. If they're smart,
Right.
they're not alleging that. All that they have to show is the communication that could have. So when I hear the word tampering, it sounds so intentional, and I don't think there was anything intentional about anything. There's some of the statements that worry me, but that's if they're true. And like Mandy said, there's a lot of credibility issues with especially juror 785, and it's something that I think they get the Rimmer hearing, and I think it comes down to credibility.
Yeah,
I do too. And I think I don't know Miss Becky. I know a lot of people who know her, but I read her book and I just could not, I don't think she has it in her. I don't think she has this evil side and I don't think at all she would even think of, I need a guilty verdict to have my book come out. Like, that's just crazy. And also, guys, writing a book is a huge pain. I have to say, it's very difficult. You don't make much money with it. People make like writing a book this glamorous, amazing process where you get flown around the world for your book tour and that like everything's fun and easy.
I hope you get flown around the world, Mandy.
I'm not going to.
Well, whatever you want. I hope you get whatever.
But it's just right. But it's just I think that they're they're just making the whole idea of having a book like all of a sudden you're a millionaire and everything in the world is different, and it's just not like that anymore. Everything's changed so much, so like the whole book world has changed a whole bunch. And I just don't see it in Miss Becky that would even cross her mind. I need a guilty verdict so I can write my book. Like, that's just...
That doesn't make sense.
A crazy thing. And yeah, I could see Dick and Jim imagining that. And I do think that I believe that she was tricked in a lot of ways. I think that she was tricked into... really promoting her book and being on like all of these documentaries and things that just made her look bad and made her look like the person that they're trying to present in these documents. It was not a good look when she was front and center at the beginning of that Netflix documentary. It just wasn't, as they were claiming that she was trying to get famous from all of this. But that's not her fault. And I do, my heart goes out to her because I think that I could be in the same position as Miss Becky. And I think that these guys will twist and ruin anybody's reputation and twist the truth for Alex Murdaugh.
But I think, Mandy, you wouldn't, because she is a court official. When they're looking for somebody,
it's a different target.
Get them a new trial. They're looking to a court official because that is the only person that can lower that standard from did it change the outcome to could it have. And they've got to have somebody who lowers the standard if they're going to have a shot at getting in the door.
And I think Becky was extremely nice to them. In her book, she was nice about Dick, something that is very hard for a lot of people to do.
It's for me.
I can't do it. She was just but she's Southern. She's a polite woman. She's not going to talk bad about people. That's just who she is. And I think the part that bothered me the most is I think that they took advantage of that. I think that they saw her as a weak link that they could twist and bully into doing things that made her look worse. And I hope the truth comes out about all of this, and I can't wait to see it.
I do too. Any other questions that y'all have for our dream team? I think I made it through most of the email questions. So any of your other questions before we have to let them go live their real lives without us? I want to say too, I appreciate, I know I can be hard on Dick and Jim. And I got a lot of hate on Twitter. Shocker. About that. And people were like, you have a responsibility to. No, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible at all. And I don't claim to be. My only responsibility is focusing on the facts. That part I will, because it would be unfair otherwise. But I didn't even Twitter. I didn't tweet what I didn't do none of that when Murdaugh came out. I am grandfathered in. I'm allowed to not like them because I disliked them before I had a platform. Just because I got a channel now don't mean I have to be nice. No, ma'am. I am still going to give my thoughts on exactly what I think, but my thoughts are based on actual evidence and fact. And I think that's what people don't like. Oh, bias. Let's just pull up that definition while we're talking about.
I actually looked this up earlier.
Oh, thank goodness. Yes. Please, let's talk about what bias actually is.
Okay. So, Cambridge, which is a good one. I like this definition. The action of supporting or opposing a particular person or thing in an unfair way because I did not paste the rest of it, but I think that's good. Yeah. In an unfair way. There's this new weird crowd emerging that they sell t-shirts that's like Alex is innocent or Alex wasn't. I think it says Alex wasn't proven guilty beyond a doubt.
Oh, that. What was that? It didn't make sense. It grammatically didn't make sense.
Grammatically didn't make sense. Common sense wise.
By virtue of reasonable doubt or something. It was like grammatically it was.
But there's this guy that is on TikTok and he's got a few people that are, I guess, with him and like this Alex Murdaugh wasn't proven guilty crowd. But what he said was, I don't believe that I cover Alex Murdaugh in an unbiased way, unlike everyone else. But I don't believe that he is guilty, and I don't believe that they proved he is guilty. And I don't think that this man understands what bias means because he is looking at everything from the angle of no matter what, I believe that Alex is innocent. So I'm going to see the evidence from a different way. I've told my listeners this from day one. Although I had a feeling, I still had to have a lot of layers of proof being thrown at me and evidence to convince me that Alex did it. It's a horrific crime, and it's a crime that you don't want to imagine anybody ever committing ever. But even though my dislike for Alex does not influence my ability to see the evidence on both sides. I do not believe that. And I'm going to be very fair and honest about, I don't think Alex is a good person. I don't think Dick Arputian's a good person. But here's what the evidence shows us. Instead of, I think he's innocent, and I'm going to look at every little piece of evidence and twist it to a way in this weird alternate universe.
And Mandy, from our conversations, I was trying really hard to believe he didn't do it for a really long time because I just kept saying that I know him. He did not do this. He could not have done this. And my husband would say, you don't know him. We don't really know anybody. And I'm just like, but we've known him for years. He could not have done this. And he's like, you don't know what people can and can't do. We don't really know. And he would always say, listen to Mandy. She has good instincts. And you did. You had much better instincts than me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think those conversations also really helped me understand like a lot of the resistance that I was getting, and a lot of the people that needed to see more proof and needed to see more, just making sense of it, and they needed to be convinced just a little bit more. And I get that. You don't want to. Nobody ever wants to see a person in their life is capable of doing something like that. But I think this story has been full of life lessons of like, you don't really know a person, and if someone's nice to you, that doesn't really mean anything. They could be awful to other people, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering from Dr. Kenny Kinsey, and I always love to say both of your names because it's fun, but you know, in looking at this and looking at the psychopathy that kind of emerged of the family annihilator, which was, you know, fascinating to me. And I sent that text to Alan Wilson in the middle of the trial saying, I think this is a family annihilator situation. They will typically kill in a very like thought out way. They like don't have a history of violence. They're well respected in the community. And a lot of times they will like have almost like a going away kind of thing for the person that they're going to kill and their family. And he rode the property with Paul that day and was very, you know, what was Dick's word? Affable, congenial, calm. He was very calm, and they were having they were relating in almost this beautiful father-son way. But we see that in other family annihilators who like take their kids to the park and then kill them when they get home because they've already made peace with that in their minds. Have you worked any murders that were like that? Because they seem so bizarre to those of us who can't get our minds to go there.
I have, and I'm not going to mention the name, but very near Columbia. But I'm not so sure about that, Miss Mandy.
Okay.
I've always but you know, like The Rock says, it doesn't matter what I think when it comes to that. But I've always thought, you know, maybe I'm going to go with them, and then I just don't have the testicular fortitude in the end to go with them.
I got you.
And because, like I said, Paul was no slouch. He was little in stature, but he could handle himself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm Alex's age, and I don't know, you know, what I would do with a young man that was, because Paul could do anything. Paul could, you know, change a tire. He could plant a field. He was a pretty skilled young man. And, you know, what happens when things blow up? You know, heat of the moment, and you take it too far, and then you say, well, I've got to finish the job. And, you know, I'm no attorney, and I didn't have to come up with a trial strategy. Thank God them wonderful men and women did that at the AG's office. But, you know, I've always said, look, I can prove X, Y, and Z. And my job was to neutralize some other experts who really, really just, in my opinion, had great resumes. They just took it too far. And, you know, I just tried to stay with what I could prove and what was scientifically grounded. But in my heart, I've always felt, you know, if you got to point, what happens if you chicken out? Mm-hmm. And then with what I brought up earlier about the cousin Eddie thing, and I said it, and Miss Brandi loved it, but everybody's got a cousin Eddie. Mm-hmm. You can't pick your family. But, you know, I just thought that was, as I said on the stand, preposterous. You're going to get somebody to shoot you in the head and you're going to dial 911. So you don't even gain any courage between the first incident and the second incident. And that's always been my thought. I think it was spontaneous. I think maybe you think about it, but it wasn't planned. It just couldn't have been planned.
Yeah.
And I think he was on some drugs, and I don't think that his addiction was nearly to the level that he tries. But I could see. I think it's just his whole world was falling apart, and even if he did plan it out, he was very sloppy about it. And that makes sense because there's just his world's colliding. He's got to do all of these things, and yeah, I just don't. I mean, and it's again, I start to think of it and like it's just a dark place to picture yourself in that mindset. It's just, horrific to even, and that's what I kept telling people during the trial. Is a lot of people kept saying, well, the motive of financial crimes just doesn't make any sense. And it's like, no murder motive should ever make sense.
We don't think like them.
Murder should be the absolute last thing that anyone ever resorts to, and every other option should be chosen before murder. I don't like the people that are like, oh, well, if Maggie was cheating, then that would be...
Like that makes
okay.
Well, that's different. Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, I get that. And it's like, no, you're trying, but killing a wife for being caught for cheating or whatever, it's kind of similar. It's just men trying to cover up their bad decisions and their messy lives. And it doesn't make any sense because none of us are murderers. So,
and they didn't know about his financial crimes at that time, and they never got to find out.
Right. And that makes sense too, because I mean, when you really look into his family and how he was raised and things, his family name mattered more than anything to him in the world, and their money and their power, and that all of that collapsing at the same time. It's not overwhelming to the rest of us because, like, I don't really care about money. That wasn't something that my family really valued or cared about. My family name didn't mean anything in Kansas, so that wasn't anything either. But to people like them, it's totally different, and it's what they value. So you just, again, this is a very, very complex crime that you can't just picture the average American family, whatever that is, and think that they were thinking like them.
Yeah. All right, y'all. I told y'all I would try to have y'all out of here in 2 hours, so I know we're coming up on it. I appreciate it. Are there any last thoughts? Anything that you didn't get asked that you thought you would, or that you would like to answer? Any final thoughts that you want to say about anything?
I'm just so thankful to be in y'all's company. This has been a lovely 2 hours. Thank you.
Awesome.
It has. It's flown by. I appreciate y'all so much because all three of you have been so incredibly supportive of just me and my my mental madness and my and just everything that I've done, and I can't tell you thank you enough, and I'm lucky to call y'all. I consider y'all friends, and I appreciate you so much. And Dr. K, it was I was so excited to be able to finally hug your neck this weekend, and was so excited. And then Mandy, I am so excited. I can't wait. Your book is on pre-order. I can't wait for it to come. So excited for that. And then of course, Mandy, you and I have had some late nights texting back and forth about all of this stuff and going over every little, down to the second, every little detail. And honestly, getting my stuff into, entered in during the trial it sounds like such a weird thing to like, but it was like the coolest experience. And that was such a big deal for me. And I thought it was so cool. It was like, I was like texting my mom, like, guess what? Guess what happened? And so
crowdsourcing justice.
Yes. So that was so cool. And that, and so I appreciate y'all three are just the bee's knees. And I appreciate y'all so much. So
Miss Brandi, all you ladies are top shelf to me, and it was my absolute pleasure to finally get to hug your neck this weekend. And don't let the haters get to you. They can have their own opinion, whatever they want to think. I've got, one somewhere that thinks I don't know anything about addiction, and I was supposed to be eviscerated in trial, and I've testified 3 times in 3 weeks, and it's worked out okay. So, I'm going to always take that high road and let them say what they want to say. But it's your opinion. It's America. You can believe what you want to believe, and it just happens to be that 99 out of 100 believe the way you do. So it's not bias if you're not on that jury. And I think everyone has lived this experience, and they get their own feelings, and they make their own about it when it's over. And what are you supposed to do? Wait 20 years before you decide? I said all along, I got to feel good about something I'm doing, and I got to feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I can be wrong. But so far I have no doubts. I have zero doubts about what I testified to, but I have no doubts about that jury. And if they prove Kenny Kinsey's wrong and something improper took place, Alec Murdaugh or Jack the Ripper, I believe in our system, and we all know what has to happen. And then maybe that team of AG attorneys will do it again. But I don't think Alec's going to get out. So, society is okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, y'all. I appreciate it so much. Thank you to everybody who, I'm sorry I tried to get everybody's questions. If I missed it, I'm so sorry I tried. Maybe we can all do this again at some point after maybe when we get closer to Thanksgiving, when we get ready for the financial stuff. So, and then I'm going to buy a copy of Mandy's book and send it to Alec in prison for his Christmas gift. So, that'll be, he's got time to read. He'll be fine.
Boy.
I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. And if we missed your questions, I'm sorry, but we did try to get to everything. So I appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.